Okay, so this video is about the what seems to me apparent fact that women are musically inferior. Now, I know this isn't going to be popular with a lot of my female viewers, and I don't have a lot anyway, but about maybe a quarter of my viewers tend to be women, so I'm not gonna not tell it like it is, try to keep subscribers, so if you take offense, then leave. But the truth of the matter is, women, in general, have not produced the same level of visionary works that men have. Now, I'm not saying as instrumentalists they're inferior. I think as instrumentalists, women can be every bit as good. I've seen some amazing female classical piano players. So in fact, a lot of people consider the greatest classical piano player of all time to be a woman, Martha Argerich. And there's some successful players in every area. Like the bassist for example, the bassist for that guy's name, guitar player. It's around the tip of my tongue here. Oh God, yeah, he played with Led Zeppelin. Jeff Beck, that's it. The bass player from Jeff Beck is also very good, and she's quite attractive also, but it's kind of beside the point. But what I'm talking about in terms of inferiority is songwriting, primarily. Now, even on this front, there are exceptions. Joni Mitchell, I think she was a creative and talented songwriter, so I'm not trying to say that there aren't, exceptions to the rule, but, you name other well-known lady musicians, and some might say, oh, well, Janis Joplin or Aretha Franklin. Well, if you think Janis Joplin and Aretha Franklin were musical geniuses, then you're wrong. I'm a big fan of Janis Joplin. I'm a relatively big fan of Aretha Franklin. But they didn't write that music. They just sang what somebody put up in front of them. And that's sort of been the case with most respected female artists. They don't write the music. They just sing what a man writes for them. And if a woman is writing it, the music tends to lack ambition and outside of the box kind of a feel. It doesn't really progress music anywhere. When it comes to making major strides in musical direction, it's well more often than not done by men. You think of names who've pushed the limits throughout history. You can go back as far as the classical period, Mozart, Beethoven. There's tons. There aren't many female names from that period, and you'd think that'd be a surprise. So I've been a lot of female authors and poets who've gained notoriety from the classical period, but yet you don't see the same level of production from women in classical music. Now, why is that? Especially considering that in the early days of music, a lot of times the women were expected to learn to play the piano and play for the household. This is what I've gathered from watching from my mother's love of historical novels that they've made into movies and things like that. And I'm pretty sure this is accurate. A lot of times, the women of the house the daughters of the house especially, were expected to learn to play classical pieces because it was considered a sign of good grooming. When you think with all these women playing piano, that one of them would have been able to do her part to push the limits of classical music at the time, but we don't see that at all. And then going further ahead into the world of rock, it's pretty much the similar story. You look look back at the 60s, and you have um, Jimi Hendrix, you have Led Zeppelin, you have um, you know AC/DC or whatever. I mean, all the names that we remember are men, and the names that we remember that are women weren't necessarily instrumentalists. They tend to be more vocalists. Etta James and Billie Holiday and some of those other 60s pop stars I mentioned, Grace Slick, whatever. And into the current day, I mean, things have changed. In the current day, I think everyone sucks in the current day. But even those people that are still making new music, stuff that hasn't been heard, they're still men. Beyonce doesn't write her songs. Britney Spears doesn't write her songs. And when I'm talking about writing the music, I'm talking about the music. I'm not talking about the lyrics. I guess a lot of them write their lyrics, but that is not writing music. We're talking about who writes the actual music. And, Katy Perry doesn't write her own music. I mean, she might write some cutesy little melody or something, but who fleshes it out, who makes it what it is? The producers. The producers are responsible for that music. Avril Lavigne, she might write the lyrics. She might write basic melodies that they extrapolate on and turn into a song, but they don't write the music. Honestly, if they did write the music is so uninspired that it wouldn't be evidence of any kind of significant contribution to music made from women. So, my question is that, I mean, you have other bands. There's Heart. I believe, Heart was probably the hardest rocking women's band that I can think of. But again, I think the male guitarist was responsible for writing most of their music. So, and the other thing I think that shows this divide is that women are unlikely to adopt musicians who are attempting to push the limits of music a little more. Bands like Genesis and Rush, who were trying to do new things in music that hadn't been heard. Yes, Jethro Tull, I suppose. Women don't particularly embrace those bands, and they don't because they represent ideas that aren't sexy. And this gets to my next point. Women are obsessed with sex in music. Number one, they have to be attracted to one of the members of the band and or the lead singer. A lot of the time they need to be attracted to these people in order to form a relationship with the music, which is, to me, a silly idea. And it's for women, it's a lot more about emotional content of the lyrics, and how much do the lyrics specifically deal with the emotions around relationships. For most of the women that do write their own lyrics, you'll notice that most of the lyrics are primarily concerned with relationships, with how a man has treated them or mistreated them, and rarely kind of touch on more ambitious subjects, things concerning the meaning of life and existence and or storytelling, things like that. A lot of times women's songs are about women's solidarity. You get a lot of that. But the connecting themes just tend to be very one-dimensional in women's music. And when you have bands like Genesis and Rush who try to present a slightly more thinking man's version of music, women are turned off entirely. Partly because I mean, Genesis in the 80s, that changed in the 80s. When Genesis came around in the 80s, then they created music that was more, related to those same themes of love and relationships, and women flocked to the band. Maybe not flocked to it, but they accepted it. But, you go to a Genesis concert today, you go to a Rush concert today, and most of the attendees are going to be male. And I think that, right there shows women's ignorance of what is truly visionary music. And I guess, I know I pick on women a lot. And, part of it's, because I'm a little bitter because um, maybe because I haven't tried as hard as I could to be with a woman, but that's beside the point. The other part of it is that I feel like my music has been rejected by women in general because, that's not true. All right, I'm not going to go into that. That's silly. I don't think most women have had a chance to even hear my music, so I can't really say that. But I guess I'm just disappointed in women for catering to, or not catering, but for subscribing to or appreciating music that is really just one-dimensional, and forcing everyone to hear more of it. I think, around the time of the 90s, they started to market music to women more. And, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, suddenly, because of women, I think music has increasingly become more about vocals than about instrumental ability and songwriting ability. And I think the ultimate expression of that are these new shows like American Idol and X Factor and things like that, where everything is a judge of vocal talent, and there's no real consideration of somebody's inner musical expression. It's just how well can you voice someone else's song, and that it continues to after they become artists. Other people start writing songs for them, and they voice those songs instead. So, and those women who do offer original voices just tend to be lackluster. Sheryl Crow, I think she writes a lot of her songs, but her songs are basically, again, they deal mostly with relationships, and they just sound very vanilla. They don't really inspire emotion in me, and most people, I imagine, they don't. If they do, it has to be emotion of a relationship. Relationship type or whatever. I'm looking for the right word here. Nature, thank you. Relationship nature. So I'd say to women, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe as women's roles change and they become more powerful in society, they can prove me wrong and go out there and rock or really come up with some unique, original ideas. But to this point, all I can see them having done is sort of ruining the focus of what music should be all about, and that disappoints me. And I just wish that they'd broaden their horizons a bit.